the title says, every one of you deserves to have great people around you and a great manager to work with. And the way you do that, quite frankly, is to understand how you interview your next employer. Because every time you talk to a prospective employer, it's really supposed to be a two-way street. Yes, you're supposed to put on a dog and pony show of look how neat and exciting and technically skilled I am. But you're supposed to find out if this is a company that you want to work with. And only you can decide that. So, a little bit of an introduction. Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm a nerd. Every Wednesday, I run a role-playing game along with a bunch of other nerds. I've been running D&D for the last 9 months. I'm also a husband. My wife is sitting in the front row. I, like many others, have at least one audience member who will clap for me. She's also going to be talking tomorrow. I'm a father. My daughter is in university in New York City. So I hear from her once a month, maybe, unless it's time for a check to be sent to the school. But most relevant to this talk, I'm a manager. I've been a manager multiple times throughout the course of my career, but for the last about 4 years or so, that's really what I focused on. And for me, the main reason I do it is because I love to see my team members succeed and grow. You might also not have noticed, but I'm not young. This summer, I turned 54 years old. And there are some of you in the audience who may be chuckling and saying, you baby. But there are also mornings when I wake up and things hurt. I'm like, shit, that didn't hurt yesterday. And every birthday, it's been a habit for me to like sort of rehash the year, to like think back over the year and think of all the things that I've accomplished, and let's be honest, the things that I didn't accomplish, and look forward to the next year. What am I planning to do? What am I not planning to do this next year, right? Like, it happens. And for the last 5 years or so, I've been asking myself, how much longer am I going to do this? How much longer am I going to fight with compilers? How much longer am I going to have to do a web search on this weird error message? How much longer am I going to have to fight with just a display loop crash in UIKit, right? These are not fun things. This is not why I got into programming. See, the reality is, I've been building software for a really long time. This is my very first computer. My parents bought me a Commodore VIC-20 in 1980. It had an inspiring 3K of RAM and 20 columns of text display. I don't even remember how many rows, probably like 6. And I was super excited, right? Like, this was my very own computer. I didn't have to share. Because like in the 80s, computers were for boys, so I didn't have to worry about my sister taking it from me. And the reality is, software has changed so much since I've started writing software, right? The evidence is all around us. We've got trackers. We've got spyware. We've got cryptocurrency and microtransactions. And now we've got gamification and LLMs getting stuck into everything, whether they really enhance anything or not, right? Once upon a time, we built really great, sustainable companies that built amazing products to solve customer problems. And that just felt unbelievably good. But now it seems that investors, all they really care about is building recurring revenue and capturing eyeballs. It feels like what we're supposed to be doing is driving up the valuation of our companies so that we can sell them on before all of our mistakes come crashing down around us. And I gotta tell you, that's not what I got into this industry for 35 years ago. So, in the autumn of 2020, I started a brand new journey. I should say, we started a brand new journey because I married the most amazing woman, and between us, we have roughly 50 years of software engineering experience. And instead of asking ourselves, how much longer are we going to do this? We started asking, what if we did something different? What if, instead of our grueling corporate jobs, we put our energies towards helping folks build their own success? Because that's what I love to do, right? I love to build up my engineers. I love to see them succeed. I love to see folks build their own companies. What if that's what we did? So the great thing was my daughter was just about to enter university, and there was really nothing keeping us in the United States anymore. And as Manuel said, I've always wanted to live in Europe. So we started hatching a plan. And the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty makes it super easy for Americans like us to start a company in the Netherlands. Really, and it feels like a scam. All you need is 4,500 euros, and you should probably have a business plan. And you're fine. They'll grant you a visa. You can literally fly in, start a bank account, probably stay in an Airbnb. It's terrible. But we started planning our escape. We started comparing cities. We compared the cost of living. We even bought flights on Lufthansa to head over and look at apartments. And then something unexpected happened. We were invited to go speak at a conference in the UK. And just totally out of the blue. But we figured, if we're going to start a company helping people grow their businesses, what better way to do that than to meet people, right? Speak at a conference, meet lots of people like you all, and spread the joy of, hey, you can go out on your own and do something cool. Well, while we were there, Caitlin met the recruiter from GoodNotes, and she discovered that they were looking for an iOS engineering manager, and she said to me, I think you'd be perfect for that job. And one thing led to another, and I was offered a position as the iOS engineering manager for this great product called Classroom. And we were told we could live anywhere in the UK, and we said, great, Edinburgh is one of our favorite cities. We'll move there. And to me, an adventure like this is nothing without the people. The reason I chose GoodNotes is because there were so many interesting people there. I could have done anything, right? I could have gone to the Netherlands. I could have done anything. But it's the people that make things so interesting. To me, the journey is all about people. If you've met me at conferences before, you'll have seen me walking around, talking to people, photographing them, learning their stories, and getting to know them. Because people are really what make your life worthwhile. And that's what motivates me about any given team as well. And that's why I've had the pleasure of working with folks who have been a TikToker, who've not only just recorded reviews of restaurants, but she also recorded reviews and introductory lessons for writing software. I've also worked with a marathoner who competed all around the world. And one of my coworkers was a competitive figure skater. These are fascinating people. They're not just people who write software. Well, the thing that I'm interested in today is who's going to be part of your journey? This is my team at GoodNotes. And every one of us has 365 days in the year. And if we subtract the weekends, we're left with 253 days. And give or take public holidays, right, we wind up with 220. And then assuming we get days off, we get 200 and, did I do this right? I must have skipped one. We're left with 220 days, right? Now, if you're a relatively average worker, you'll work for 40 years. That means that you'll have worked 8,800 days. So the people that you work with will make far more of an impact on you than any technology you choose, any compiler that you choose, any LLM that you choose, anything that you choose. I mean, you might meet your next spouse based on the people that you choose to be with. So let's talk about your journey. Because this is going to be the most important thing for most of you that you're ever going to do. You may not be interviewing for a new job right now, although given the state of the market, I bet some of you are. But the following are going to be some really important things for you to remember the next time you are. They'll help you understand the kind of company that you're dealing with. And I want to emphasize that there really are no right or wrong answers. It really depends on you. Because if you're the sort of person who loves working at tiny, small startups, well, almost none of these questions are really going to be germane. Because tiny, small startups don't have time to focus on HR issues. But you have to understand that, right? They just don't do HR. They're so busy on being a tiny, small startup. But if you're going to work for a bigger company, you should expect a little more maturity. So the number one thing that you should be looking for is their career framework. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, a career framework are the levels in the engineering skill set, right? Starting with software engineer 2, which is usually where you start right out of college. Software engineer 3, senior software engineer, staff software engineer, principal software engineer. And reasonable people can argue about what levels should be in a career framework. We certainly did at GoodNotes. But you can also expect lots of different opinions about what goes into each individual level. But the fact is, everyone's going to have an opinion about what goes into those levels. Everyone's going to have an opinion about what a senior software engineer should be able to do and what a software engineer 3 should be able to do. And if you don't have an actual framework, then there's no way for everybody to be on the same page. So the two real big questions that you want to ask when you're in an interview environment start with, do they have a career framework? Again, small companies, small startups, they won't. They're just figuring out what they want to do, much less who's going to do what, who's going to be what, right? When I joined GoodNotes, I really wanted to help my team get started on their growth. But we didn't have a framework, right? There was really no way for me to dig in. My biggest accomplishment before I left was being able to author one, to work with the other engineering managers, to get agreement on all the levels and all the skills that were in each level, and roll that out before I left. And the question that I hear a lot is, why is this so important? And as Marco Rogers says, if you don't have a visible structure, then you have a hidden structure full of assumptions and biases. And for a guy like me, that probably works fine. But the reality is, without that visible structure, how can you be sure that your manager is evaluating you the same way that they're evaluating the other engineers in your team? Or how can you be sure that your manager is evaluating you the same way that a different manager would evaluate you? You have no assurances. And this will absolutely affect your promotion and earning potential. Now, again, in a small startup company, everybody's moving so fast, you're probably mostly getting paid with equity. It really doesn't matter. But it might matter to you. Maybe you plan to be there a long time and you want to progress in your career growth. These are the things that you have to understand whether they're important to you. The second question that you want to ask about the career framework is, can they share it? See, the entire 10 years that I worked at Apple, I never knew what the career framework was. I had only one manager who would let me look at it briefly. I was never allowed to keep a copy. Sharing the framework is incredibly bold because it says that we not only have a framework, but that we're confident enough in it We're confident enough in our adherence to this that we're willing to let you have a copy. And if they're willing to share that publicly, that's even better. So if you take a look at Monzo's job listings, you can scroll down to the bottom and you'll find a link to their engineering progression, and you can click that and you can see their career framework. And the best thing that I like about this is it's got a version number and it's got a last edited date. That is fantastic. So you can see every time it's been edited. I mean, you never know if they forgot to edit it, but hopefully that's handled by their CMS. So that's the career framework. Super big deal. The second big thing are decisions. All progress is driven by decisions, right? That's just human nature. And the best leaders enable their teams to make decisions and only step in when they absolutely have to, right? But the fact is, you can't always rely on your gut or your instincts to make decisions. There's a lot of times where having a framework for making decisions can be super helpful. And so there are a lot of different decision-making frameworks out there, and it really doesn't matter which one they use. Whether they use Rapid or DASI, or they use KPIs or OKRs, or they prioritize things based on RICE or Kano. Don't care. It's totally immaterial. The most important thing is, do they have a process? Because if they have a process, then they have a repeatable method by which they make decisions. You know that tomorrow, when something really important has to be decided, they're not just going to wing it. And there'll be an artifact of that decision. So that later, when you come back to it and you say, why did we adopt gRPC? You can look at the document and you can say, oh, those were pretty good reasons 3 years ago. New information has come up. Let's revisit that decision. The other big thing about making decisions is who makes them. So the vast majority of my career, the engineering team has made the decision. As long as we were making our OKRs, how we did so was left entirely up to us. Now, sure, as an engineering leader, it was my responsibility to provide upward guidance to my leadership for how we were planning to do this. And every now and then, I would get feedback. But I never thought that I was getting their approval. Now, also, sometimes there are company-wide initiatives. Like, we're all going to implement Facebook integration in all of our things. But that's life, right? You have to play the game. But I got to tell you, that's not how every team works. And you have to understand how you prefer to work. Do you prefer to be part of the decision-making process where your team makes the decisions? Or do you prefer to have decisions made for you? And this may come as a shock to some companies, but their founder is not Steve Jobs. Steve had a unique blend of attributes. And he also didn't make all the decisions. I had the pleasure of working at Apple during the period, albeit brief, when Steve was still at Apple. And yes, he sometimes did make decisions like that shade of gray, but only after seeing all the designs, only after seeing the final result. But for the most part, he allowed his lieutenants to make the decisions. And he stepped in only when he felt it was necessary. So decisions, crucial to the fundamental working of any good team. This one is near and dear to my heart. Disasters. Now you may think that I'm talking about what happens when a server goes down, or how do you plan for the next time that AWS takes out half the internet? But honestly, as a manager, when that sort of thing happens, when AWS goes down, I'm just going to pick up PagerDuty and page one of you to take care of it. Because I'm a manager. I don't understand that shit. So let me tell you a story. I was having breakfast on the second day of a company offsite. And I usually get up pretty early. And so frequently I have breakfast all by myself. And I was just finishing my breakfast when two members of my QA team walked over to join me. And, a little bit of pleasantries exchanged. And then Tim said, "Hey, I don't know if you heard during the opening meeting yesterday, but Steve was dialed in over Zoom, and he didn't have his mic turned off. And during Gary's presentation, he said something really inappropriate. And we checked with Gary, and he overheard him, and a bunch of other people heard him as well. And we thought you should know about it, and we talked about the details, and I'm not going to explain the details. But it definitely warranted a discussion with HR and pursuing sexual harassment investigation. These are the sorts of disasters that managers deal with. And the question that you want to get to the bottom with, assuming you have a really good feel for a company, is there a plan? Because you want to know if something were to happen to you, how prepared would this manager be? How seriously would they treat it? See, it's one thing to just go through those sort of, you've all probably seen them, the cheesy training videos and then the multiple choice questions afterwards, right? It's better than nothing, right? But it's really an indication of organizational maturity to get to the bottom of how do they plan to handle things like this? What happens if you come to them and say, I hate my job. I hate being a back-end developer, or I hate being a tester, or any of these things. These are honestly things I've dealt with. I've also dealt with an engineer coming to me and telling me that he and his wife just broke up. And the corollary here is, do they practice? You didn't get to be great iOS and Vision OS and Mac OS programmers just by reading a book. You write code every single day. So how are they going to deal with these sorts of disasters if all they've done is the quarterly training? The best thing that ever happened to me is in a particular company, we had something called a mock management disaster. And we had about 7 or 8 of them. And I'm going to share with you one of the ones that we went through. My floor monitors have gone out, so I'm going to read these. For the last month or so, you felt like your report has been a little distracted. Nothing too concerning, but they were a bit more checked out than you're used to, since they're usually the star of the team. This morning, you woke up to a Slack message from them saying they'll be taking another job. You're now going to meet with them face-to-face to discuss the next steps. So, on the one hand, I'd been through the training on like, what's our company plan for dealing with somebody who's announced they want to leave, blah, blah, blah. But this was just the note that I got. I got it 5 minutes before I was supposed to go into a role-playing session with one of my fellow managers and an observer. And my fellow manager blindsided me with a, you give all the good assignments to one of the other engineers and blah, 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 and I just, whew, it was brutal. And like, I'm sure I completely messed it up, but it wasn't a judgmental exercise. The whole point of this exercise was to give me an opportunity to fail when it wasn't important. Because we didn't want me to fail for somebody who mattered. Right? Can you imagine if this had really happened, which it did about 3 weeks later, first, and like I was blindsided with that sort of assertion for somebody like that I cared about? I mean, I cared about Doug too, but like that's a different story. I would have been devastated to know that I hadn't handled it correctly. But because I went through this experience, when Kevin came to me and said, hey, I've been offered this really great opportunity to do message queuing and whatnot, I was like, that's amazing, Kevin. On the one hand, maybe I could offer you some more money, but like this sounds like a great opportunity for you. How can we make this work best for both of us? And maybe they would have liked me to try harder to keep him, but frankly, it was a great opportunity for him. So disasters are really a manager's bread and butter. My job as a manager, first of all, is to prevent them, right? This really is a failing of a manager, right? Any good manager should have known this person was a leaver risk. But to handle this gracefully. So disasters. And finally, mentoring. If they get through all the other things, the final thing that you want to know about your prospective manager is who replaces you? Because everybody's ambitious. Everybody has a goal. Maybe they want to be a senior manager. Maybe they want to be a director. Maybe they want to quit and do woodworking, right? So they should be grooming 1 or 2 engineers within the team to take over their responsibilities. When they go on vacation, who are they grooming to take over their responsibilities? How are they bringing up people within the team to understand what it is that they do so that someone could step up and be the next manager of that team? And then the corollary here is, what is the plan? Right? Like, do you have a plan to like bring up a new manager and step away from this team? Now, this may be a little touchy because, like, you never know what their feelings are. Maybe they are literally on the way out the door. My very first management job, I wasn't there more than a week, and my manager said, "See ya." He told me, "Oh no, I'll be here to mentor you the whole time." Things happen. So that's mentoring. Least important of all, probably to you, because you'll be the new person joining the team, so you're probably not this person. So let's recap. Starting with number 1, most important. What's their career framework? Do they have one? Can they share it? Number 2, how do they make decisions and who makes them? Number 3, how do they handle disasters? Do they plan for them? Do they practice? And finally, as a manager, how do they mentor the next managers? Because the reality is, these are the things that are going to really affect the remainder of those 8,800 days that you have yet to work. That number just kills me every time I say it. Every time I've rehearsed this talk, I'm just blown away by that number. 8,800 days. I don't know how many are left for each of you, but the better group of people that you can surround yourself with, the happier you're going to be. So thank you so much. This has been me. I actually forgot to upload my vCard to the server, so you can't scan the QR code and download my vCard. In reality, it just has that information anyway. So, nerds, we suck at everything. That's me on Mastodon, and that's me via email. One last thing, since I moved across the ocean, I haven't picked up my professional coaching at all. So anyone who's here at the conference, I would be delighted to offer you a free session of professional coaching on anything other than finding a new job, because it is a really terrible market out there, and I have no hints. But literally anything. So until this is on the internet, feel free to reach out, and I will help you with whatever's on your mind. And if you have any questions.
Yeah. All right, so we're ready for questions. And sorry for those watching the video on the internet. Yeah, I'll start with this.
Thank you for the great talk. It was really amazing and inspiring. Sorry, let me stand up. One question, do you know any company who answers successfully to all 4 of your questions, and are they hiring?
So I know limited, so yes, success to limited number. So obviously Monzo has their career framework on the internet. As far as I know, they're pretty good with the disaster planning. My previous employer, ClassPass, was the example that did an amazing job with disaster planning. They were literally the very first one that I've encountered that with. They do have a career framework. For some reason, and it's very good, I helped revise it while I was there. For some reason, they're bashful about putting it on the internet. But and they do have a very good mentorship program internally. Apple is funny, but they're funny in so many ways. They're not the company I originally joined in 2007. So they do have a career framework, just it may be more public now than it was.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
So that is the CF prefix in all those API. It's for career framework, right? Before I forget, and we can take another question, there is a self-organized dinner tonight. It's on the Slack. There's a new Slack called Thursday-dinner, right? And otherwise, I think we'll meet at one point like 7:15 in the lobby, something like that, right? But now, do we have another question? Also, before I forget, that picture of the VIC-20, sorry. Now we've seen your emails and contacts for a long time, so can you put it again? Because I found it something really interesting. My first one was a C64, so it was just after that, and we had it later. But I think the funny thing for those who are slightly younger than you, we had on those keyboard was the graphics on the bottom of the keys. You could literally design with all of those, whatever they're called, pictograms or whatever. And the other interesting thing is the cursor. There's only 2 cursors. And for the other one, you have to go shift.
Yeah. So interesting anecdote. My first real job was building an embedded system, and on the IBM video cards, you could upload a font on a lot of them, and we completely defined a font so that we could have larger columns and rows to depict all of the phone lines. And it was just bonkers because we had like 180 columns and 60 rows, but they were all just like these weird glyphs that were piecemealed. My boss was a nut.
Yeah. Also, you can tell you could program basic on this thing, but nothing else because there's no curly braces.
Well, it
or
only
whatever
had
it is.
basic.
All right. It was a wonderful day. I don't know if you agree, but it's time to give a round of applause not only for Jeff, but also for all the other speakers from today.